Good morning. Good morning, radio listeners, community in general. I hereby open this public meeting of the Island Council for today, Wednesday, May 28, 2025. Welcome to those present in the hall, as well as the general public listening by social media. Let us stand in respect of the anthem. Thank you. Be seated. We will now go over to agenda point 2, announcements. We have 2 announcements. First, Council Lady Loeb Spanner is absent with notice, and also Commissioner Merkman is also absent with notice. Is there any announcements? None? Okay, if there is no announcements, we'll move on to agenda point 3, setting up the agenda. The current agenda reads as follows. Agenda point 1, opening. Point 2, announcements. Point 3, setting of the agenda. Point 4, ratification of list of incoming documents. Point 5, ratification of the list of decisions and commitments dated the 10th, 30th of April and the 19th of May. Point 6, we have budget, Court of Audit 2026. Point 7, annual report 2024, Court of Audit into stages. Point 8, response letter to State Secretary Szabo and position paper to first and second chamber. Point 9, announcements, Executive Council and Island Governor. And point 10, closing. Can we agree to continue today's meeting with the agenda as is? Councilman Van Putten.
Madam Speaker, indeed, we have taken note of the agenda, but the PLP faction would like to add an additional point, and that is a motion. One would recall that we were here several weeks ago talking about the situation of the housing in Rolling Rock, and it was agreed that within 45 days that we would come back with a response. So to that effect, we have a motion that we would like table for debate and eventually for ratification by the Island Council. So may it please you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Van Putten, could you please let us know what the topic is to be added to the agenda?
Yeah, like I said, it's a motion that we are presenting with regards to the sale of the houses in Rolling Rock. Like I mentioned, we were here a couple of weeks ago. There was a motion back then, and it was agreed that the faction will go back internally, and within 45 days that we would come back with a final response. So we are at that point, and that's why we would like to table it for debate and eventually for final approval, where we will be given an instruction to the Executive Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. On the floor is a proposal of an additional, namely, sale of the houses, Golden Rock houses, motion sale of the Golden Rock houses. I will hear from the members of the council if they, for or against. Yes. One for? Four? Okay. Okay, we have consensus on this point, so the agenda point will be added to the agenda. So the agenda will read as follows now. Madam Chair, yeah.
Good morning. I thought Mr. Van Putten was going to bring up this point, so if memory serves, tomorrow will mark 10 days since the last motion passed as well, brought forward by you. So seeing that tomorrow is a holiday, and then we're going into the weekend, and we're traveling next week, I was wondering if there was any update on the 10-day request to come back with a response on GVP.
Van Putten?
Well, Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition is right. Because of the Friday, indeed, is the 10-day. But I still wanted to give the Executive Council, because we did have some discussion with the commissioners rather, and they said that it was still busy, finalizing some matters. So because of the holiday in between, I indicated to them that we may have to ask the indulgence of your office to call the House in an emergency session to deal with it. Because already I see publication where it is said that the council sent home the school board. We have not reached to that point. It is in motion, but we have not reached to that point. But we're going to be working the few extra hours, maybe even tomorrow, to make sure that certain things are in place, but we are waiting the answer from the Executive Council. And I hope that we could have this by Friday indeed. But we don't exclude the possibility, Madam Leader of the Opposition, that, and the public by extension, that sometime in the early week, that we could call the council in session just to deal with this specific matter because of the nature and urgency of the matter. So thank you for the concern, bringing it forward, but they do have our attention. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. So the agenda will read as follows now, if there are no more changes. Agenda point 1, opening. Agenda point 2, announcements. Agenda point 3, setting of the agenda. 4, ratification of list of incoming documents. 5, ratification of the list of decisions and commitments. 6, budget court of audit 2026. 7, annual report 2024 court of audits in 2 stages. Point 8, response letter to State Secretary Sabo and position paper to first and second chamber. 9 will be now motion, sale of social housing. 10, announcements, Executive Council and Island Governor, and 11, closes. Because we will move on to.
The agenda is set.
I'm sorry, yes.
Can we continue with the agenda?
Sorry, can we continue with agenda as as stated? Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move on to agenda point 4, ratification list of incoming documents. We have all received the proposed handling of the list of incoming documents. Are there any comments regarding the list of the incoming documents? I look to the council if we can proceed with the ratification of the list of the incoming documents. Are there any? Okay. Okay. The list of incoming documents will be ratified as proposed. We will now move on to agenda point 5, ratification decision list, April 10th, April 30th, and May 19th. Each member of the council has received the decision list of the meetings of the Island Council that were held on April 10th, April 30th, and May 19th. Are there any comments on the decision list of April 10th? No? Are there any comments on the decision list of April 30th? Are there any comments on the decision list of May 19th? Okay. As there are no comments, then I propose we accept and ratify the decision listed as presented. Okay. We will now move on to agenda point 6, Budget Court of Audit. Agenda point 6 concerns a budget for the Court of Audit of St. Eustatius, which the Island Council has the authority to approve. The Court of Audit is an independent body that monitors how public funds are spent, helping to ensure transparency, efficiency, and accountability in government operations. This budget was discussed in the Central Committee meeting on May 15th. Initially, it included extra funding for investigation, but it was later clarified that this was not necessary and not within the court's mandate. The revised version now includes only slight increases for travel and administrative costs needed to support its core oversight duties. The commissioners were tasked with obtaining confirmation from the Finance Department on whether the budget, including the slight increases, is financially feasible. The Island Council has received a memo from the Finance Department with advice encouraging the approval. I now give the floor to Commissioner Leerdam to further elaborate on this memo in the absence of Commissioner Merkman.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. Good morning to the honorable members of the House and those who are listening via social media. Indeed, this discussion was held in the last Central Committee meeting, and Commissioner Merkman sought advice from the finance manager, unit manager, who also created a memo that you kind of touched on. So indeed, the additional funds that was needed for the internal accountant does not serve the responsibility of the Court of Audit, so that was removed. And then he goes down to break down the increase of budget. So the increase of budget for 2026 is 96,450, and the current budget of 2025 is 84,223. The increase for the travel and accommodation for 2026 budget is for the member of the audit to upgrade themselves in Holland after a period of 4 years, because the Court of Audit sits for 6 years. The administration support is to help with the yearly administration of the audit court. The additional funds for the external audit is to cover that yearly audit that has to be performed. So the advice from the finance manager is stating, knowing the importance of the audit court as a supreme institution and the importance of the work that they do on a yearly basis, he advises to grant the Court of Audit the additional funds amounting to $12,000 for the year of 2026. The budget for the year of 2025 will remain as is, and the amount that is needed to adjust for 2026 budget will be processed in the budget of 2026. So when the budget of 2026 comes to the floor of the council, they will have the amount that the Court of Audit requested for the new budget of 2026. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Leerdam. I look at the council if there is need for a debate. No? On this particular point? No? Okay. No debate. Do you have any? Okay, I looked at the Island Council if there is any need for vote on this particular topic. Huh? Hmm? Okay, this proposal is then passed by acclamation. We now move on to agenda point 7, Annual Report 2024, Court of Audit, St. Eustatius. Agenda point 7 concerns the 2024 Annual Report of the Court of Audit of St. Eustatius. This report outlines the activities, findings, and observations of the court over the past year. It provides valuable insight into how public funds were managed, highlights areas of improvement, and supports greater transparency and accountability in government operations. The report also serves as a tool for the Island Council to monitor the effectiveness of public spending and ensure that policy goals are being met efficiently and lawfully. This report was also discussed in a Central Committee meeting on May 15. I look at the council if there is need for a debate. No? Okay. Is there a need for a vote on this topic? Acclamation of this topic also. And we move on to point 8. Agenda point 8, response letter to State Secretary Zabo and position paper to first and second chamber. Agenda point 8 concerns the ratification of a joint letter from the Island Councils of Bonaire and St. Eustatius addressed to the State Secretary and a position paper that will be sent to the first and second chamber. The documents are a development stemming from the cooperation between Bonaire and Statia after having visited the Netherlands in February. As suggested by the registrar, this point is placed on the agenda for ratification only. I look to the Island Council if they agree with the suggestion of the registrar. Councilman Van Putten?
Speaker, not necessarily. I don't think that we need to debate the contents, but I think that for the interest of the public, because a lot of documents, a lot of things have been happening. And sometimes when you speak to the common guy on the street, he don't fully comprehend. We know that while we was in the Netherlands, that there was a lot written in the media, a lot came out from the ministry itself. And while we may not go into the deep content of it, I think it is good if any member so desire to give a global, view with regards to what we are talking about and how we move forward. So I would suggest that we have a discussion. If a member decide to use his all right, yes or no. But like I said, we don't dwell too much within to the intricacies and details of the document before us. Thank you so much.
For the council member, Council members, if in agreement?
Morning, Madam Chair, and to the listening public. Well, I'm just suggesting that perhaps on behalf of the faction, one person could present the faction's position, and so that everyone doesn't need to take up the time. Suggestion.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. Now I'm asked who will, Councilman Van Putten. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I think it was during the month of April, or maybe late March, we were in the Netherlands, because as we know that, I think it was in 2023-24, there was a meeting between the then State Secretary, Mrs. Van Huffelen, on behalf of the Dutch government and the public entities, both the executive and the island councils of all three islands. And we met in the Netherlands in an area called the Belt. It was a very, I would say, sophisticated meeting because it was presided over by the president of the Joint Court of Aruba, the Coast Islands and the West Islands. And I think within 2 to 3 days, we were able to look at the content of the current laws, what we refer to as the FinBest, which cover the financial management of government, and the VOLBES, which takes care of the administrative and other areas of the governance of the entities. The point of departure on the part of the then State Secretary was to grant what she done, giving more power to the islands. Well, I think that different members of different islands have different interpretation. From a personal point of view, I saw it has been addressing, but I think what was very clear, seeing that the position that Statia took from the very onset of this whole constitution restructuring, we wanted to make sure that it be clear to the federal government in The Hague, via the then State Secretary and the rest of the islands, that the right of self-determination must remain anchored within the legal framework of government, so that if and when Statia decide that they want to execute, implement, enforce that right of self-determination for another status, that we can do so. But in general, we participated. I think, as would be said properly, everybody threw water to the wine. I think that everybody didn't get what they want. But at the end of the day, I think the vast majority of the participants felt that it was a good meeting, and some even thought that the document was historic. I think to highlight some of the historic aspect of it is the position of the Kingdom representative. That is the person that is appointed on behalf of the Dutch with seat in Bonaire to sort of have a supervisory role over the administrations on these islands. But most of the islands, I think all of the islands, as a matter of fact, wanted to see that position eliminated. And a lot of the responsibility, the authorities, if you may, some would go to the governors in the different entities, and others would go back to the minister, because this person is acting on behalf of the federal government, but particularly the Minister of Home Affairs and Kingdom Relations. Then we also had the expansion of the island councils, the seats in island councils on all three islands. There was a discussion, because I think the initial proposal was to go to 11 seats, for instance, for Station Sabre. And I think Bonaire would have had either 18 or 21. And then where the commissioners is concerned, Statia Executive Council would be expanded by one commissioner instead of 2 commissioners. We will have 3 commissioners, and then I think Bonaire would have ended up with 4 or 5. Also, we discussed the possibility for the right of the islands to be able to borrow on the financial market. that was something that they were open to. And of course, there were some other points that was mentioned that one would think that it would be beneficial that the islands give the islands more possibility in order to be able to develop the island the way they see it. We came out of the meeting, I must say that from the side of Statia, one of the questions that was asked is of the commitments that were being made if it would meet the approval of the new government in the Netherlands, because if we know Mrs. Van Huffelen at the time when she was negotiating with the islands was in a sort of caretaker capacity, and she said that she did have the approval of the parliament. But with the coming of the new government and the new state secretary, Zabo, initially he had told the House of Representatives in Holland and the Senate that he didn't have the urgency, to implement the proposals that was on the table. And he wanted to have more time to be able to study it. And then later down we saw that they took things that they were interested in. I remember 2 years ago, I think now December will be the 2 years, when we was in Holland, that they took out an area where, for instance, the sign protocol with the islands where there was given more administrative support to the governors and also to the Cliffy, and I think to some extent the office of the island secretary. And then later down, we saw that the state secretary made a 360-degree about turn and stating that he wanted to pack up the other things. So like I mentioned, the whole idea of increasing the seats in both the executive and island council, the issue of borrowing, that was put on the side. But the Dutch wanted to maintain, at least him on behalf of the Dutch government, wanted to maintain the position of kingdom representative. The islands reacted immediately, because if you take, for instance, this whole idea of the expansion, at the executive and legislative branches of the governments, this should have gone into effect in the next general elections in 2027. So when the new island council would have met, you would have had 7 to 9 people, and then here in Statia, and then you would have had the commissioners would have been increased, so you would have 3 commissioners. That too was back up, but he was only concerned about maintaining the role of the kingdom representative. There was a summit on Sabre. It was discussed very extensively. The islands were not happy with the manner, because while we acknowledge that the minister of the government, the state secretary, have the right, because the last word stays with them, at a certain point it has to do with us. And if it has to do with us, we believe that whatever decisions are being made, that there should be consultation and agreement with the islands and the federal government. So it was decided then to send a letter. The letter, and I must say that came from the side of Statia, Councilman Simmons, they proposed that the issue of disrespect and colonialism, the behavior, it smacked that. I think that wasn't the word not too happy with those words, but I think at the time all the islands agreed that there should be a strong letter sent to Holland and request to meet with the state secretary, both houses of parliament in Holland and other stakeholders involved. We visited Holland. There was a meeting with both the first and second chamber. I would say that they were very receptive, especially the first chamber, to the concern that the islands had. But it was a sort of stump block impasse between the state secretary and the island. I think the tone of the letter bothered him, because he indicated that in the different comments he made in the public. But I think that we met as island councils and strategized how we would present it. We also retained the services of a constitutional lawyer who would assist us in these meetings and moving forward in this whole process. And the state secretary and his people had a problem with that. As Island Council, we felt that the minister was out of place, because you cannot determine for the Island Council who the advisors should be if they are going into meetings and feel that they need the necessary assistance and support, then I think that that should be honored. We were permitted to enter into the building. We reached to the office of the state secretary, the conference room. And when the time came for the constitutional advisor to enter the room, then we were blocked from entering. And already we did had a strategy that if the legal constitutional advisor could not participate, then we would not have a meeting. However, we did agree that one from each island, along with the general secretaries, Khalifi/Khalifis of the island, they would still meet with them and communicate why we cannot participate in the meeting. That happened. That was very clear. And we saw the firestorm that happened after. It was also decided that a letter would be sent to the state secretary regarding our position on the whole matter moving forward, because we still believe that it must be decided. The state secretary at one point said that he don't negotiate with island councils, they only negotiate with the executive council. But we even question the form of negotiation, what they call negotiation or consultation. You don't come for 10, 15 minutes and talk with the executive council or even island council on such an important matter, and then you call it consultation. So that is where it is. Recently, the Prime Minister was there, and I had the opportunity, like other island council members, to speak with him about this matter as well. But in any event, we agreed that a response letter would be sent. There was a delay because one of the islands in question needed more time. And then I think at the final analysis, there was a video discussion which followed up with a letter. And I didn't read the letter because I didn't want to waste my time. And I said it to them. So what I'm saying here this morning is nothing new, because I felt that if we meet and we discuss issues as grown-ups, then we need to stick to that. And people have a right to change their mind. But if you change your mind, then you must be forthcoming and stating, well, listen, we had agreed to this, but I have a change of mind. And then we will respect that. I know the office of the Khalifi because I'm constantly in contact with them on a daily basis, to make sure that things move to the pace and level that we agreed to. And each time I got a response that they were not responding, so then we agreed on another strategy, and then we got a response. Like I said from the very onset, it is of paramount importance that the three bodies, public entities, work together. I think we have a lot in common, but I said from the very onset that each island must be comfortable as to what they want to support and in areas in which you're cooperating in. It came down to the final analysis that this letter will now be signed by the island councils of Bonaire and Statia. The other island, which in this case is Sable, have their right whether they want to respond at all. If they want to respond, how they would do it. But the document that we have before this House for ratification, that meets the seal of approval of both the executive and legislative branches of government of Bonaire and St. Eustatius. So this morning, Madam Speaker, I would like to submit to your honorable discretion that this document be approved, and once it be approved by the Island Council, then it would go on. I think the final signatures will be placed to it. I think the governor and the Khalifi would sign on behalf of the Island Council of Statia in this regard, while that will be the case for Bonaire as well. I think that Bonaire already would have ratified this document. So once we ratify it today, I hope that no later than Monday, even before, because I understood tomorrow is a holiday, that at least it will be a defeat of the minister and all, and letting him know, and the government by extension, and the Hague, what the position of the island is. Because as was said, based on past experiences, I think that everybody learned from a situation, whether it was good or bad. We have indicated that despite, and I particularly, because I think that I have been the most critical voice of the behavior of the Dutch, but I'm saying that as long as we form part of this constellation, I said it to them on several occasions, I am prepared to work with them but I think it would be out of respect and equality. I will not accept, as long as I'm sitting here as a member of this Island Council, that anything be imposed on our people. The Island Council was elected, 5 members of the council was elected by the people of this country. And it is the people interest that all of us represent. From time to time, we can have differences of opinion. That is quite normal, even in marriages that happen, but we strive as much as possible to find common ground so that once any decision leave this territory, that it have the seal of approval of all 5 members of the Island Council. And that is what we will continue to work on. So the document before us, we had the opportunity to look at it extensively, and I think that all the members agree to it. So if there's no other speaker beside me, I don't have the leader of the opposition want to make a contribution in this regard, but if not, then I would suggest that this too be accepted by acclamation because it had the input of all 5 members of the Island Council moving forward. May it please you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Van Potten, for that explanation. Council Lady Raquel.
This is a, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very difficult topic. Difficult because we have tried in so many ways to deal with this issue and also bring it to our community. As was said before, we try to take our community along, seeing that we were elected to these positions and at all times need to remember that we represent the people and their wishes. We did not, of course, have the opportunity to go to our people, whatever ways you can do, keep a referendum or ask them how they feel about what we are doing. So indeed, we have to use our discretion and tackle this topic. The problem is that you constantly feel as a small island that you are, how do you say, fighting for a seat at the table, that you are, and then once invited, it's like you're coming to a gunfight with a knife. So you are, how do you say, not seen as an equal at the table, and you're coming to a position unprepared. And as was elucidated, that the technical support and the advisor that was brought along was not really invited to the discussion. It's unfortunate because our community knows that we went to Holland, we had these issues discussed and ironed out with the former state secretary, and now we're back at ground zero. And I think some of the highlights of what we are discussing has been mentioned, but I need a community to understand where we're going, such as the increase in the Island Council members that has been a topic of discussion, our position on the function of the kingdom representative. And this is all in accordance with the wishes and input that we had in the bill back then. And it is, as was stated before, our responsibility as an Island Council. And all we're arguing for, I must say, is a right that you would think is, how do you say, vanzelfsprekend. It's understood, which is self-determination, our, not just ability, but our position, our authority in the positions that we have to self-determine. So the goal of this, for people thinking that we're engaging in a never-ending battle, the goal is to reach a consensus, which we thought we had. And it's not just based on a wish list, but the necessary changes that govern our island, which is the WALBES and the FINBES. So all we're asking is for equal seat at the table, and it's being compared in the document to the IPCO. The dangers of such a discussion and continuing to engage is We can get a seat at the table. We can be indulged, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use that. We can be indulged and invited back to the table. But sometimes you wonder, will they listen? I can have a discussion, but I can also not listen. I can indulge you and give you the impression that I'm hearing you. And as I stated when I started, that's what makes it difficult, in the sense of all of this that we have done has brought a lot of attention to this topic. And are we going in the direction that we want? Will we force the State Secretary's hand to give us that seat at the table? And once at the table, what are the guarantees that what we bring forward will be heard? And when I say heard in the sense of that you're actually going to do something with what we're saying. There are no guarantees, so that makes it all very difficult because we don't know if our efforts are even valid or if they will lead to anything. Don't misunderstand me. At no time I'm saying not to do this because, as stated before, and what I agree with, it's our responsibility as an island council to speak up when things are not going the way that they should be or not in the best interest of our people. So I'm just stating that I have mixed feelings about this effort if we haven't done all that we can, and if this shouldn't be our final effort in a good show to our community that we did all we could. You know, when you antagonize basically the one that needs to listen to you, you are creating barriers in communication. And I just feel that we have reached a point where there is a breakdown in the communication. So with that said, I hope our community understood the stances of their representatives. They understood exactly what we are doing and why, and also understand at which point we are at this moment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Lady Raquel Spanner. We will now go over to the ratification of the, I'm sorry, Councilman Smith, sorry.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to point out one or two things I see in the text. I don't know, maybe they've already been corrected, or maybe this is how they're supposed to be. On the first line of the letter, the last little word, I think, is supposed to be de, so it's missing an E there. So the last line on the second line has Bonaire, St. Eustatius, and Bonaire, which second Bonaire I think should be Saba. And then on the signature page, it has again Bonaire, St. Eustatius, Saba. Shouldn't this be only Bonaire and St. Eustatius? Because I see only those islands are scheduled to sign. It's removed on the front page. Yeah, so on the signature page, and Saba too has to be removed there. Thank you.
Councilman Simmons. Councilman Smith, thank you for those observations. Those corrections should be made. Okay. If there are no more other further comments in regards to this point, we will now go over to the ratification of the documents.
Madam Speaker, as I indicated, that I think the Leader of the Opposition made a contribution as well. Some corrections was made by my colleague on the side of the aisles. But I think with those corrections in mind, which we will leave it at the feet of the General Secretary to make those rectifications, because indeed I believe that Saba need to be removed completely from the text because it is only Statia and Bonaire. But taking into account these rectification, I still would suggest that we approve this document by acclamation with the understanding that those amendments and changes will be made. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Leodam? Sure. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Commissioner of Constitutional Affairs, I just want to just give a bit of my 2 cents. I fully subscribe to what the Council Lady Spanacarty said, you know, when it comes to having a seat at the table. I can recall the Emancipation Day speech I had a couple of years ago was talking about a seat at the table, and if it's really a seat, you know, we are just bringing you there to say, okay, finally get there, but what value does that seat has? And I do agree that it becomes a bit tiring when you see that we are trying to fight for the right of self-determination, especially seeing that the laws of the best, the world best, applies to the best. It doesn't apply to any other municipalities in Holland. It doesn't affect Holland directly. Maybe indirectly they have some areas, but it directly affects the best. Bonaire, Statia, St. Eustatius, and Sabre. In this capacity, it is very important that we also put a constitutional department in place, not only a committee, but a department. And I think that will also help us as government, but also with the people to stay up to date with ongoing law changes and all those different things and how it affects us as an island. And definitely the working relationship between the islands. Well, we know it's going to be Bonaire and Statia, right? Yeah, Bonaire and Statia right now with this, when it comes to this letter. But I believe going forward with the constitutional lawyer, it really helps us understand our point of departure as well and our rights as an island council, as an executive council, in respects towards the constitution that we have with Holland. So within the assessment of the civil core and ensuring that we get a robust government, this is also a department that will be formed or reformed, because I believe it was formed back in the day, where we can keep an active eye also, and also inform the community, keep them involved, get their response every step of the way, ensure that they understand what we're trying to achieve, because I believe they feel it, but they don't understand it 100%, and they just want to get a relief. In the discussions that I had at DC Alpha, when I was in Bonaire, and we were having some constitutional discussions, and everybody that I spoke to from the different islands, whether it's in Martin, Aruba, everybody always commend the fact that Statia had foresight. And when they said they want to remain in the Antilles, they had seen the bigger picture. Now everybody is seeing the fallout of the breakup of the Antilles. And I'm wondering, I don't know if we all learn a lesson, it's time to come back. Maybe that's the best thing to help everybody out of the situation. I don't know, there's discussions I guess you can follow up on to see if that is something that you can revisit. But I think everybody realized that dismantling of the Antilles may have not been the right direction for the kingdom. And they always commend Statia for always standing up and knowing what they want. So we already know what we want, so we just got to finish write that story. And I would just like to leave it there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Leodam. If there is no other comments, we would like to go over to the ratification of the document with the necessary adjustments and corrections. Does the Island Council have consensus in regard to ratifying these documents? We hereby ratify acclamation. We will now move on to agenda point 9. The motion to sale of social housing, Golden Rock. Councilman Van Putten. Just a minute, Councilman. I propose that the speaking times be 20 minutes in the first round and 10 minutes in the second round. Do I have an agreement in this proposal? Yes? Okay. Councilman Putin.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think that I have the opportunity to motivate or give the introduction. And this should not be a part of my speaking time, although I may not use all of it. But like I said before, the Island Council met, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this matter, again, was tabled because, as you know, some time back, we had reached an agreement with regards to the sale. And I, as one of those members, felt that we was, or at least I felt that I was misguided, if I could say that, because internally within the PLB faction, we had a discussion, and I would say an agreement, you know, with what the houses will be sold for. And then later there was a list which I had requested to get inside to. And then they said it had to go to, it was still in Zaka. I don't know the word in English, but in any event, it was at the office of the General Secretary. And we needed to go there and see it, and I protested that because I believe that there's no secret where the business of the people of this country is concerned that cannot be shared with Island Council members, because this is the highest body in the country. And so the document was approved. When we look at the figures involved, to this day, for me, and I know other members of my faction as well, we wondered what yardstick was used or what method was used by the government or by the committee, you know, to come up to the prices for these houses, because you had the first set, the second and the third set. And then we see there was a big gap, you know, with the number of these houses. I think that all the members in the council had the opportunity to express their opinion and their views where the sale is concerned. And I think when I listened to this side of the aisle, I got the feedback that there were members too, even though we may have had different individual approaches, yet I think the consensus was that seeing that these houses are 50 years, some of them are 50 years old. Number two, seeing that the land on which these houses were built belongs to the people of Station. Number three, seeing that these houses are way outdated in the Netherlands, in the European part of the kingdom, they would have been written off. Seeing that there were never any major investment, maybe until a couple of years ago, they did something, and I don't even know if that was something well. Yet we feel that the prices that government was asking for was too high. We know the issue of market value was a big discussion. Again, I thought there was understanding, you know, in approaching the then State Secretary, who also was responsible at some point in time for housing rather, and the Dutch government, after certain people would have left, you know, in anticipation of the change of government there. But in any event, a lot of things did not go the way it should have gone. It must be clear that it's only the Island Council that can make the final decision, you know, what these houses will be sold for. The Island Council, like I said, is the maximum authority in this country. They represent the people directly, and there are certain privileges, certain authorities accorded by law to the Island Council, and this is one of them. They instruct the Executive Council and say to them, this is the direction that we would like you to go. Of course, the idea is not to instruct the Executive Council to do things that is illegal or things that may be unrealistic, so you take those situations into account. It did not sit well with us, not just me, but we came in one of the meetings, I think it's about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was agreed that we would go back internally, since the initiative came from this side of the aisles, and we will look at it. And so we had several meetings where the matter was discussed. I think just a few days ago, we met again, and via the lead of the government, our message basically came from the DK, I don't know whether it's the DK and housing, the housing, where they were not willing to compromise. They are sticking to their market value. And I told the commissioner that the DK must get the message very clear, that it's the Island Council will decide what the prices of the houses are. If I come and build on the governor land, the house belongs to the governor, because I build on your land, even if there was an understanding, I build on your land, so it belongs to you and not me. If there's a falling out that you decide, listen, we want the pathways, it's your property, because I built it on your land. And beside that, like I said, back then, we were in the constellation of the Netherlands Antilles, which we are no longer. But these houses was given as gifts to all the islands. Some islands got more than others, but it was a gift. It was given to the people of Statia. And so I think against the backdrop, where the PLP mantra is to empower your people, this is one of the means in which you're empowering your people and giving them the opportunity to be able to own a home. Now we know there's a lot of discussion, individual members have different opinions as to interpretation, but at the end of the day, there are people there that we know is not in a position. We came here and we said, well, suppose we have somebody that's living in a house and they are not in a position to buy. If another family member, when they say children, but they also have people in Golden Rock who don't have children, might have a niece or nephew, that they would have adopt, maybe not legally adopt, but would have seen them as a child. And if anything should happen to them, if they in a position not to be able to buy the house, maybe this niece and nephew should be able to buy it on their behalf. And if they should die, God forbid, then the house automatically goes to them. I think these are things that we have to even revisit, because if I want to buy the house and I have a family member that may not be necessarily a child, it could be a brother, sister, a niece, or nephew, I think that that opportunity should also be looked at. Even when we met as a faction over the past weeks and up to yesterday, we even went a step further in saying that we are talking about the sale of 25, but we want to look at the possibility, Madam Speaker, that even down the road in the not too distant future, that more of the houses should be sold, because it must always be the government vision to build more houses, your population increasing, and so you constantly build, and as you build, then you sell and you reinvest. So we selling 25, and initially it was 35, but we knew there was a big discussion when there wasn't to be sold at all, and we put up a fight, don't give them to Basal, but keep them here locally. And so we are saying that we will sell 25, but we want to let government know that it's a PLP faction, firm belief that we must look beyond and even try and sell the rest while the government is in anticipation of building more houses. So we met, we said that would have come back within 45 days, and we would present the motion, because we don't want to hold up the process anymore. And this is the motion, because basically it is said that motion is a wish, commence. But this is not just a motion, this is an instruction given to the Executive Council by the Island Council. So we expect that the Executive Council will do the utmost best within the legal framework of the law to carry out this motion. So, Madam Speaker, with your permission, because I went into my discussion, not only the presentation, but even my round, I would like to present this motion, because I don't think there's a long need for long debates, because I think this whole issue is exhausted. But like I said before, it's with the people in mind. You don't want to kill your people. Sometimes I think that the federal government and the political establishment in Holland, sometimes is very insensitive and unrealistic, because while they demand and tell you they want you to do market value and all the different things. We see so many possibilities, houses and big buildings, apartment buildings in Holland. When they reach a certain amount of years, they're being demolished, and then they put up new structures. But for houses that I would say maybe not, it's only the mercies of God that with the heavy hurricane that we have been having over these last years, that some of these houses didn't cave in and kill people. Thank God that didn't happen. But yet you put in the penalty of the law. Well, I think that this motion isn't interfering because the government, and I remember the Commissioner of Finance once said that his executive council was the executive council of law and order. And I think it had to do with maybe statement that I would have made. Yes, I believe that it must be law and order. Any government or any council should follow the law. But I think that sometimes you need to challenge your law because Allah isn't a one-sided thing. You understand? It isn't what maybe the bigger power want. But if there's a law and you feel that that law is stifling your people, and that law is putting stumbling block within the path for government, be it legislative or executive levels of government, then you need to challenge your law. And so we are presenting this motion and instructing the executive council to act expeditiously to make sure that it be implemented and we can proceed with the sale of the houses in Golden Rock. At least 25 people will be able to buy now, and we look forward to have the engagement with government as to where they are. And maybe while I'm on my feet, I would like to ask the commissioner who's sitting here and stand on behalf of our colleague, what is the current state with the new houses that are supposed to be built? Because we know Holland had promised some years ago they would have built 50 houses. And I was always suspicious because after Basel didn't get their way, and I know that Dutch was behind this as well, I knew we wasn't going to get the money. I warned the commissioner here. And then later he came back and he did confirm that it wasn't going to give the money. So what eventually happened, I think they gave a 2 million grant, if I'm right, at least that was proposed. And then, but you will be able to answer that. But in any event, Stacia had to take a loan, to make up the difference in order to buy it. There was a point in time when there was asking about the land being ready, called it bouwrijk in Dutch, to be able to start these houses. So it will be good for the Commissioner of General Affairs to be able to update us in the absence of a colleague. What is the status of the loan? There been a finalization? Because I know they came one day to the next and said this is what Holland proposed and there wasn't any room to negotiate. And that is where I think that Holland also is in bad faith because you come with these last minute moves until you take it or leave it. So we would like to know, has that process been finalized? The loan will be given, what is the terms and references? Is the land ready? And if so, when can we see? Would it happen before the end of the year that we would see movement in building new houses? How much will be built? Is local contractors involved? I think that a profound and detailed explanation should be given to this House and by extension the people this morning with regard to that. So Madam Speaker, we'll go to the motion. The objective behind the intention to sell 25 houses in Golden Rock is to empower the local community and especially those in the lower economic bracket to participate in the economic fabric of the island through property ownership. This can have positive ripple effect for tenants and their families, allowing them to build capital, generational wealth, and attain collateral that can open the door to more economic opportunity for this group through education and business venture, thereby reducing future dependence on government and public service. Considering limited access to financing for this segment of the population, the absence of other supporting facility structures and incentives such as a special loan program, subsidies, grant, tax incentives, loan guarantees, etc., especially for this segment of the population. The goal to reduce poverty in this and future generations. Resolves to provide for the approved buyer or buyers of each house in Golden Rock slated for sale a one-time grant to facilitate and in furtherance of the sale of each houses. Resolved, the grant will be fully for account of the public entity of Statia. The grant need not repay any part thereof unless it is later proven it was obtained by deception or supplying false and misleading information. Resolved, the grant will become effective at the moment of the execution of the sale of the house by means of a deed of sale and transfer before the designated notary public or any time thereafter by way of deduction from the total appraisal sale price of the house. The grant is in addition to the already approved costs of upgrade to the electrical wiring and the notary costs to be covered by the OLE. So I want to stop here and emphasize that beside the commitment and decision that was made, that the electrical part of the houses will be upgraded and the notary fees will be paid for the transfer, this additional subsidy will come to what we agreed to. The part of the sale process of the houses as approved by motion of the Island Council on April 30, 2025 ends with the adoption of this motion. Should there be more than 25 buyers, the Executive Council will seek approval for the sale of additional homes subject to budget availability. The amount of the grant is equal to 500 United States dollars, US 500, for each full year the tenant or buyer have lived in the house with a maximum of 25 United States dollars, so 25,000 United States dollars. So this is the additional subsidy that will come for the account of the local government. And finally, to instruct the Executive Council to execute this motion forthwith in accordance with applicable laws and ordinances, the budget requirements of the OLE, and the applicable letter of intent signed in June 2022, which authorized the sale of the houses and move on to the order of the day. This is the proposed motion from the PLB faction, and I'm quite sure, Madam Speaker, that in the presentation by other members of particularly this faction, this side of the aisles, which is the one responsible for this motion, that they will be able to give further elucidation on the motion as I table it here this morning. May it please you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. The next speaker will be Council Lady Raquel Spanner Carty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if we should wait on the Commissioner to return, as some of the questions will have to be answered by her. Yeah? Okay. Thank you. I would like to ask some indulgence because I just got a motion this morning as we came in, so I didn't have any time really to prepare, but I did have some questions and concerns. I was wondering a few things. I would like, if this motion is passed, that persons that, if consideration could be given and take into account if persons have backlogs in rent. I find it very unfair if you didn't pay all the years that you were there, or some, or portion, whatever, that you now can profit from this proposed deduction in purchasing. As was already mentioned, we do not want to do anything illegal, so I'm wondering what, if the motion fits in the legal framework, if there is an advice from CFT. And also, when we were first presented with the sale of the houses and it was finalized in the Island Council, we got a presentation on what the money would go to. And I think it was about, I think we were barely breaking even. So I was wondering if we deviate from the original price scheme and we propose this, what will be the difference? If a house costs 50 and let's say, for instance, we pay, as a government, we pay the 25, will we actually pay it towards the original plan, or will it remain in our coffers? Will there actually be an exchange for the value as stipulated? You follow me, Commissioner? If a house is 50,000 and the person purchasing is entitled to the 25,000 reduction, if the government puts in the 25,000, will we actually be putting it in? Will we pay ourselves? Will it go towards the housing foundation with the original investment intention? Or will we hold it? You understand? Okay, thank you. And like I said, if we deviate from this original scheme, what are the, how do you say, adjustments does the Housing Foundation have to make? Because the money was intended for reinvestment. I also was of the understanding that more than 25 buyers were identified. So, as often is the case, I'm kind of wondering who, no names, I don't want names, but what I mean is, if persons have already indicated that they can buy, I'm wondering basically who are we doing this for? Because if they came forward and said, and we have more than 25, I understood. So I'm assuming that persons are sure of their financing possibilities. And I just want to make mention that, you know, reinvestment of the money would mean us securing more housing possibilities, etc., which would serve our future generations. So when speaking of what we are doing for our future generations, I'm wondering if all of that is taken into account as well, because we are completely now changing, to me, as I'm understanding the motion, the original intent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Lady Spanakati. We'll go to our next speaker, Ms. Councilman Simmons.
Thank you. I would like to use my time to talk about a subject that I always bring up when I meet with persons from the ministries. And there's a letter that I constantly walk with, and I'd like to mention it, especially for the scribes that are listening and taking note. There was a letter from the 9th of June, 2022, and the subject is allocation of income and expenditure to the Caribbean Netherlands. I always bring up that letter because it shows, basically, they made an attempt to show what the income expenditure is for the best islands. And to me, it gives an unfair information because I constantly state this information is lacking a lot of money. And for us to do these things, like, for example, we're talking about housing and increasing wealth, we need to know what our current, financial system is. So we need to know the income expenditure of basically St. Eustatius. And I believe it's very unfair when you ask for information like that from the national government who is collecting the taxes, that you don't get a straight answer or you get false information. This letter was signed by 2 state secretaries, and to me, it's, sometimes, every time I read it, it's sometimes makes my blood boil, because it is very deceitful. And I hope that in this subject, persons who have their influence pass on information, they could pass on this information and get the information to us. Because I believe a month or so ago, we had a meeting at the library with someone from the ministry, and they promised that they will get certain information to us. And I say, well, I'll see it. When I see it, I would believe it, because it seems like games are being played. When I look on the world stage, there was an issue about a jet being donated to the US government. And I start doing research about the donor. And when you look at the history of the donor was not always full with wealth, rolling with money. They managed to use their assets to become wealthy. And the thing is here in Statia, Saba, the 6 islands, we also have that ability. But instead, we are here scrabbling for the crumbs under the table, trying to do better for our inhabitants. And sometimes I don't even say have a seat at the table. You're trying to catch the crumbs that falls from the table. I will put it that way. And I hope that putting this information out there, I hope someone print it in the Daily Era too, that it will, gain traction, because information like this should be ready, should be open, and persons shouldn't be begging for information like that, because if I believe your tax return form was due a few days ago, and you get these threatening letters. If you don't fill it out, you will have you will be fined. So the same thing, you holding persons accountable for their income, for their expenditure. You as a government also should do the same. And I'll leave it like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons. Councilman Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning again to everyone present and those following us by various media. On this very important topic of housing for the people of Statia, and especially those in the lower segments of our community. I've said before in this council on early occasions that it's not often that we, as an island government, get the opportunity to actually do something for our people because of our limited financial means and resources. We go in elections, every 4 years, and we make intentions known. Some say promises during campaigns, realizing that many of those promises and good intentions often proves more difficult to achieve for a large part due to the lack of our own resources, financial and otherwise. We hear a lot about the capacity of government to even execute projects, and our continued outsized dependence on financial support from the national government. But once in a while, an opportunity comes along. I recall, I think 2 years ago, that we approved the annual accounts for the island, I think it was 2022, which showed a surplus of $1.4 million. Many did not believe at the time that it was real money, but with the support of the opposition in this House, I presented a motion and was able to get that motion passed to secure that money to do something for our people. The 1.4 million was reserved for, among other things, the often spoken of racetrack for our youth, and also for government administration building purposes. At the time, I stressed the point that we don't often get these opportunities to do something of our own choosing for our people. Most of the time, The Hague sets the agenda ahead of time for what needs to be done, especially during and since the intervention, which lasted 5 years and which after that still left many problems and issues unresolved. When we reserved funds for, as I said, these projects that we have been talking about in the community for a long time, especially the racetrack for our youth, we were told, and we got news from The Hague, that our priorities were not correct. We, the representatives of the people of this island, living here among our people, knowing the needs and desires of our people, we are told by civil servants in The Hague that our priorities are not straight. Then they should have straightened them when they ruled the island for 5 years. So today again, after opportunity, another opportunity presents itself when again we as local representatives of the people can do something for our people, not a promise, but actually take action to assist an important segment of our population, namely the tenants in the foremost local community on our island, Golden Rock Village. A community of long-time residents, senior citizens, and also, I think, the largest concentration of young families with children on the island. The volume of my mic go down somehow. Many of whom still do not live in adequate circumstances because various generations are forced to share limited space due to the shortage of social and affordable homes. We know efforts are being made to build some new homes, but the pace is slow and for a variety of reasons. In the meantime, we need to do what we can to alleviate situations for the folks there. Many persons and families have gone through Golden Rock and transitioned to other areas by mostly building their own homes, and we applaud that. Social mobility is important, that despite circumstances, people still make strides to elevate themselves when they do make themselves and when they do make room for others. But we know too that not everyone is able to do that. That are many who need a helping hand to achieve that upward mobility, to move to higher ground where they can often offer their families and children a brighter future. Madam Chair, our goal today with this motion we are presenting is intended to do just that, namely give families an opportunity to elevate themselves to a higher plane. I'm really liking the word opportunity. It holds a lot of promise and possibilities for our people. As the motion you heard says, we seek to empower our people, especially those in the lower economic bracket of our society, to make them masters of their own abode, to make them responsible for the roof over their own heads, to put wealth in their reach, to preserve, grow, and extend that wealth to their future generations, their children, and beyond, and to grant them collateral possibilities that they can flip into loans for education of their children and starting businesses, perhaps. Madam Chair, opportunities, and more opportunities on the horizon for these folks once they are able to seize what we are putting on the table here today and what we are offering them. That is what this motion is about, putting opportunities in the hands of our people. Some may say we are spoiling people and leading them by the hand, but we all at some time in our lives need a helping hand. Even when we are grown and adults, many still need a helping hand. That's why we have not only our understand and our child allowances, but also old age pension, because, Madam Chair, the caring for our people never stops. We never stop caring for people, friend and foe. We must continue to help each other along. And as a result of this action here today, undoubtedly we will again hear that we don't have our priorities straight. We expect to hear from CFT, the ministries and others about our bold move today. But Madam Chair, we are in our rights. We are, as an island council, using the budgetary right to allocate funding for social housing, which is a legal task and responsibility of the island government. This allows us, this council, to make choices accordingly that we feel are necessary and timely. Yes, our financial situation is not glowing yet. We do not have coffers full of excess funds, as we would wish, at least not yet. But our financial situation is slowly improving due to the hard work of our government institution, departments, and the thoughtful contribution of our council. We are making progress on that front, and, might I say, through blood, sweat, and tears of our people as well. Our local island budgets are already showing upwards of $5 million in local taxes being collected on this island. $5 million. No small feat for a population of just over 3,000 people. We believe it is only fair to return some of that to our people when we get the opportunity to do so. The grants to tenants in Golden Rock will not stay there. It will spread. The effects will stimulate the economy. As tenants own their own home, we expect their attention will turn from just living in their government house to investing in the limited resource to improve, investing their limited resource to improve that house. Hopefully, they will be heard within short of owning those houses. More the sounds of hammers and saws and cement mixers, and more as the new owners take to investing in the improvement of their own home. No longer will the Housing Foundation and government be responsible for repairs for a new pump. New owners will help themselves. It may mean putting off the purchase of that new iPhone or that expensive vehicle and focus for a time on making the house a home. Madam Chair, I want to mention again the pushback we may get from the other side of the ocean And I have in earlier speeches here on the floor of our council mentioned that the European part of the kingdom too faces challenges every day. And the government there, as is expected, endeavors to do what they can to fix the problems for their people. I mentioned how they throw money at every situation and every problem that develops because they have the funds to do so. When we fall in the same situation, we have to run to The Hague and beg them to help us out of our tight spots. And often that comes, we know, in the forms of the famous interest-free loans that ties us down for many years, repaying. I can mention the child benefit scandal where over €1 billion, billion with a B, or more has been reserved to solving that problem. Each potential victim has already been given an advance of €30,000, no questions asked. And if it turns out they still do not qualify, they don't have to pay it back. They can keep it, just to keep the people quiet. The earthquake victims in Groningen, same story. Hundreds of millions of euros set aside to compensate those people, and rightly so, for a situation that is not of their own making. That's what government must do, help their people in need, and what we are trying to do also with our limited means. Two other examples, a story I pulled from the news just today. More electric cars on the road in the Netherlands because of government subsidies. Millions of Dutch people, it says, have plug-in cars due to subsidies and more models. And the story says, we have seen the number of plug-in cars increasing for several years now, since Marjolein Jaarsma of Statistics Netherlands says. For business drivers, we mainly see that the favorable tax arrangements and subsidies play a role in allowing these folks to acquire these electric vehicles. And also closer to home on the subject of social housing. Right now in the Netherlands, there's a debate ongoing where the government wants to freeze the house rent of tenants in social homes in the Netherlands for 2 years. 2 years freeze of the rent price. Apparently, in this case, the comply and explain was forgotten again because no similar plan was announced for us to freeze the rents on this side of the ocean. But the housing corporations there are not happy because they say they will lose revenue and cannot build the amount of new homes they want if rents are frozen and their income reduced. So they have basically decided to take the government to court. They want more money to compensate. So if the government decides to freeze the rent, the government must compensate the foundations for their lost income. And the minister promises the corporations 1.1 billion euros in compensation for the rent freeze, according to ADIS, which is the Organization of Housing Corporations, where I think also our housing corporation is part of. According to them, that 1.1 billion is not enough. Housing Minister Keizer also says that this is far too little. In the coming decades, approximately 1 billion euros will be needed each and every year to compensate the housing associations. And I believe, Madam Chair, they're going to find it somewhere and somehow, and they're going to provide those funds. So I hope hearing us here today, they might also consider that we too need some extra funds for our folks. Madam Chair, I say all the above to say that our goal, our mission is just in the eyes of our people and just in the eyes of our Maker, who called us out to do for those less fortunate in our community. Despite the pushback and criticisms we expect, we are determined, at least from this side of the aisle, to push forward with this, and I call on the local government to also embrace this initiative. It's new for Statia maybe, but not a novel idea, but it is timely for Statia and the people of Golden Rock Village. Our party faction in this House has caucused and concluded that this is the right thing to do now, and I call on the Council to support this action as well. And of course, we remain open to the opinions of others, and we will hear them out. And of course, we hope that all of this will happen in accordance with applicable laws and regulations and agreements that have been made. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll leave it here for now.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. I will now pass the word to the Commissioner Ledam for response to the queries of the Island Council members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm asking, please, to get a scorching of 20 minutes. I just brought in the backup so I can answer the questions on the council's behalf. Since I'm holding in for Commissioner Merkman, he sent me some information and he sent the backup for me to be able to answer properly. So if I may have the time, I will sit with the team and provide necessary answers that the council asks in depth.
I will look at the council members for approval for. Okay with all?
Yeah. I don't think I'll need more than 20 minutes because they're already listening back and putting on all the information, the questions. So it's just to sit down and.
Okay, so we will adjourn and convene back at 11:45.
11:45. Thank you.
Okay,
Madam
thank you.
Chair.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Welcome back to our Island Council meeting. We will now go to Commissioner Leadam, who will give her responses to all the queries of the Island Council members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try my best to answer the questions and the concerns of the council. The Commissioner Merkman has sent his support, and I have some additional support coming in, legal, in case the second round there's some additional questions that we are not able to answer now, or definitely some of the questions we definitely need to get some more time to dive in it legally. But I just brought in additional support so we can answer as much as possible. First, I would like to start a bit. I know Councilman Van Putten asked a few questions, but I want to go a bit into the LOE that was signed, just to give some context, and then we will answer the questions. So the LOE that was signed between all parties, I don't have to repeat the parties, it was for 100 houses and with a price tag of $4 million. Within that, $500,000 from the CN envelope of government, so there was a CN envelope, and we could have allocated certain monies. So $500,000 of that CN envelope was allocated towards the renovation of homes. And then the ministry sent $500,000. So we had the first initial $1 million, and that went towards renovation of the homes. Right now, based on what I received, the information, we're set to get the second $1 million. This will be now 100% entirely from the ministry itself, and that will go towards, again, renovating homes. The cost to renovate a home ranges from $50,000 to $55,000. The homes at Golden Rock, because they're in a bit of a worse shape, it takes a bit more money, but the homes at Lodi, because this is also part of the renovation, the Lodi homes took a bit less, so it kind of balanced out the $50,000 to $55,000. Now, the ambition to repair all the homes and the funding, the financing is not there. So we get $2 million, and as I mentioned, it costs $4 million to renovate all these homes. The idea based on the LOE is that the minister would also look for additional funding to renovate the rest homes. So the sale of the homes based on the LOE would go to renovating homes as well, but that does not guarantee that all the homes will be renovated, even if we sell these homes, because we still have to find the rest of the money to renovate some of the homes. I will go to the Bouwrijk Maken from Councilman Van Putten. He asks about that. How far are we? The tender has been completed. So they had a tender. I think everybody know there was a call for contractors to come. The Verkavelingsplan, what is the English word? Okay, the site plan is ready, so they can move on with that. But then I just got some news that that don't look too good financially either, because the monies that were anticipated that were needed, it's a couple millions more than what it is budgeted for, what is available. Currently, there's 300-something thousand available, plus they get 216 annually from the ministry for housing, and that will go towards the Bouwrijk Maken. But based on the Verkavelingsplan, the site plan, and the tenders, we realize that we're a couple hundred thousands in deficit, missing, short. So that means, as I was just informed, they were basically writing a nota to BSA to inform us of this, and also to come with a budget amendment to find monies to actually have the Verkavelingsplan funded so they can actually start the project. If this money is not found, that means they will have a delay when it comes to executing the verkaveling of the land. Commissioner Merkman informed me that he will be going in Holland, when we're in Holland for VNG, but we're going to be doing other ministry visits. The intention is to also look at the architectural drawing for the homes, which needs to be ratified by the Island Council. He informed me that even though we know that Basalt has fallen out of the discussions, that they're still the one finalizing that, because they already started it, so that will not be that we have to start that process over. So he will be looking at the draft that they have, and then once it's so far, the draft will come to the Island Council because they are signatories of the LOE, and this will have to be ratified by the Island Council, so the draft for the new homes. In respect towards the loan, as you point out, the last communication that we had was it was looking positive, but we're still awaiting the approval of the finance. Correct? Yeah. I think they was going through their, first and second chamber. So we are waiting to see if that get approved. The monies that, based on the initial intention when Basalt, they were given monies and they had to then go to get financing for the rest monies. So we were able to secure those monies, which is 2-point-something million, and that money now will come to the OLE as a grant, so we don't have to pay that, because that was, Basalt was getting that. And then the rest comes in a free interest loan that the Island Council gave us approval to go and enter in discussions with, which we did, and which is now awaiting approval. We are expecting that the loan that we're going to be taking on a price tag of over $4 million will be budget neutral, because we expect that we will be able to pay back the loan with the rent that we will receive. So we're hoping that it will not have an effect on the budget. That is where we stand when it comes to the new bow. If I miss anything, then I can come back in the second round. Coming to Council Lady Spanacarty questions. Did the CFT give an advice on this new motion? We received the motion this morning as well. As Councilman Van Putten said, they were working till late hours on this motion and this morning a bit. So we received, as an Executive Council, the motion this morning. And this also needs to be vetted, because we have to see how we can actually carry it out legally. So won't be able to give too much more information on that in terms of what the CFT advises and what the ministry thinks, or whoever would want to put an input in it, what they think about that. The idea is that, yes, I guess based on the motion that we received, the grant, if they receive, for instance, the house costs $50,000 and then they get the grant of $25,000, then the really cost for them is $25,000 that they will be paying. But we got to remember that government now, because we're trying to figure out, that's why we bring legal here, but it's not enough time for them to figure out how that grant system would work for government. Because definitely we can't tell them, okay, the house is $50,000. You qualify for the grant of $25,000, so actually just pay me $25,000 and government figure it out after. That can't work. So the government have to have the funding available to say, okay, put it together. And then the next question you asked was, how does that affect the SFH? Again, because it's clear that all these homes will not be renovated, the money needs to, and the LOE is clear that the monies have to go towards the renovation, we still have to put that money to the renovation. I just want to paint a clear picture. So now we're looking at $25,000 maximum. I'm just going to go extreme and say, out of the 25 homes, all of them actually made the $25,000 requirement. So I'm just being extreme. I don't think that's possible, because I don't think nobody live 50 years in the homes. But anyhow, this extreme case, 50 years, I don't know if 25 of them live 50 years. So when I look at that, that will be 50 times 25,000. Oh my Lord, 1.2. Where do you get that number from? Times. No, I thought more than 20. Yes, that's 1.2 million. Oh, okay. That was saying a number didn't look right. 25 times 25. Thank you very much, Councilman. Yes, that's the number you gave me. I was like, 625,000 that we will have to find as a government for that. Yeah. And then we have to recall that even though, and this is also in the motion, that we estimating that $10,000 will come out. That's a rough estimate when it comes to notary fees and it comes to electricity. So in reality now, government got to find $35,000 per house to put back in. Because if you really want to repair a house for a house, then we have to do that. If you don't want to repair a house for a house, then whatever uplinks we get goes to whatever house can be repaired, and then that is it. And then you gotta then wait on the ministry to find the additional monies. So if you want to repair a house for a house, that means you need to get 35,000. Maybe 35,000 max. So you're looking at government gotta find 875,000 to cover the sales of these 25 homes. When it comes, the question was asked, which is part of the motion, can we sell more than 25 homes? Based on what I understood, the LOE needs to be revised because basalt warning is no longer part of it. So once it open up, I guess it's open up for discussion, so you can have those discussions on it. The question that Council Lady Spanner asked, 29 persons were interested. Initially, at what we learned the 30th of April, is that out of the 52 persons that were interviewed, 29 persons showed interest who basically had the financial ability to purchase these homes. So the question of who are we, whose interests are we doing it for, I think that's a question we'll have to go back to the council members. But my caution or concern, if I may, I'm wondering as well, the persons that, because it's very clear that we're trying to help the persons who have been living there for numerous years in these homes. And if you're living there 50 years and you're a pensioner and you're not able to obtain, even though you get this grant and the different things, it's still not financially feasible for you to get the home, then who I see benefiting most of it is the ones who can already afford the homes and they get additional grants. So I think we have to really look into the operation of this. If you're really trying to help the seniors, the ones who, you know, having a harder time buying a home because now they have to rely on their kids because, yeah, they are pensioners, they can't go to the bank to take a loan. And even if the kids still can't come in American to get that loan for them, then they're not getting the benefit of this grant. The 29 persons who may be already financially able, they will get a benefit, will be even more cheaper for them to buy these homes. So I think operationally we have to really see if this is really reaching the ones we want to reach. The persons who been there, who been living there for so long, who understood that this was, I guess, to be their forever home in whatever capacity, how it was explained back then. If these are the persons that we want to be able to own their homes, then we have to make sure that this process is going to meet them for them to be able to do that, because they already would have preference based on the process. Persons who live in longest in the home have come in first American. So if you have 30, 40 years in the home, then you come in American. But if you come in American and you can't afford the home, even with this extra, again, you're still helping out those who can financially buy the home. So I think we really need to look into those areas when we're discussing the motion. And yeah, if the Island Council have an idea to where we can get the money, where we will also, Councilman Smith talk about his 1.4 million that he secured, and they have some money there still. I don't know if you want to get from there, some of it. No, you don't want to get from there. All I'm saying, but all jokes aside, we have to find money, so we'll have to do a budget amendment. When you're saying that the adoption of this motion means that we can continue the sale, but still we have these logistics we have to work out financially. How does that work? Like Councilman Van Putten said, I informed the faction that through Commissioner Merkman, he showed me an email where the DK reached out and said, hey, I understood what is going on now with these sales of the houses. I want to be very clear. Well, I'm more nicer way. It wasn't stern or nothing, so we don't try to create a tone that was not there, but they was very clear that there's no negotiation, like he said, and if this is not done by the stipulated time, the taxations will not be valid. That means that all the process we did to get all those taxations, we have to do over, because again, while we are saying, and I agree with Councilman Van Putten, yes, the highest body is the Island Council. The reality is the minister and everybody else have to give the approval. So if they're stating that the taxations will not be valuable anymore, we have to do that. That means we have to factor in monies to start back over that process. So take in mind, again, there's not enough monies for the The Boudijk Marken.
Excuse me, Councilman Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think the process, as we said, with the passing of this motion, the pause ends. And the process was that the tenants who are interested in buying, they have to give a final answer by June 30. So that is still possible. So where is the delay? If folks by June 30th come and give their answer whether they want to purchase or not.
There may not be no delay once financially and within the law of Invest we are allowed or how we can work out this grant, but we also have to find monies for this grant. I mean, even if it go ahead and they say, okay, I'm willing to buy this house and everything goes well, right? And we can put this grant, 25,000 max per person, or 35,000 realistically. Then we need to come with a budget amendment so that at the sale, because you said at the sale. So by the sale now, we have to have the money ready. Otherwise,
I think it says, thank you, Madam Chair, it says at the sale or thereafter. Yeah. So the funding of the grant can happen after
that's what I'm
the
saying.
sale.
That is
Once your logistics are worked out.
That is your option. That's what you're saying. But I'm saying now, when we take this now and go vet it back and check the process is legal XYZ. If legally that is not possible, that's what I'm saying. If everything happens nicely, then that's not an issue. They just gotta find the money later. If that means that we just take away one of the other plans that we had, whatever the Island Council chooses, how they want to go about that. But at the end of the day, if legally that is not possible and we have to have the money at hand, we risk the chance of having to start back over the taxation and all those different things again, which we'll have to find monies for. Because again, at the end of the day, again, yeah, all I'm saying is that the details is not clear how that looks. Because I'm speaking as if everything works out good. Then you gotta find the money. That's at least a big problem, but still at least a problem. But now, if we figure out that it can't work like that, then we have to come back to the council and explain. Look, this is what you want, but these are the processes that we have to follow. This is the law within the confinements. We check different avenues. This is the best we can do, and maybe it's not what you want. What does that mean for those person? You understand what I'm saying? Because they're saying yes, based on the fact that they might get this grant because we didn't work it out as yet. So now everybody's listening, hearing that they can get a grant. We got to work it out to see if it's actually how possible this is. So now I can go and say yes, and then I can't afford it afterwards. Then you fall in a whole different process. So I would say give us some time to work it out. The lawyer is here as well to see what she can answer if there need to be. Commissioner Merkman sent a message, but I think we'll work that out. I want to mention that right now. Yeah. We'll work that out and see legally what we are allowed, because basically he's saying that he don't think legally we may be able to do some of these things. So we wanna really vet it and see what the possibilities are in the different areas and how we can, as best as possible, carry out the wishes or the instructions of the Island Council. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think if I miss anything, definitely I'll be here on the second round to try to explain, and Commissioner Merkman, I think he's listening in and he can give me some feedback, because he's indulged in this 24/7. I'm just getting bits and pieces from him, and when we speak in executive council, so I have an idea what is going on, but he have his staff here to help me, and he's listening to give additional information where he can. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Leodam, for your extensive explanation. Is there a need for a second round? Okay, and we agreed that the second round will be 10 minutes. So we're going to start with Council Lady Nottingham. We will start with the second one. Okay, we will start with Councilman Van Putten.
Madam Speaker, I listened with great interest to the explanation given by the Commissioner, Ms. Leerdam, who was sitting on the stand. And then the last message was legally. I think sometimes we are too legalistic. I said before in this council that we need to become more proactive and not reactive. And this morning, my heart swelled when I listened to my two colleagues on this side of the aisles, especially Councilman Smith, because this is the PLP that I know. This is the PLP that stood for the masses, the poor people in this community. And I'm hearing that if it really going to reach, would really need to reach, I believe so. I think that is the intention, because we don't have millionaires living in Golden Rock. And I think that Mr. Smith had given already an indication what we could anticipate from Holland, because whenever it come around the government, not only here, because we have that same problem in Curacao and St. Martin and elsewhere, that whenever governments try to do anything for their people, Holland always tries to inject itself in the way. But I want to submit here, CFT does not stand above the authority of the Island Council. No, they can. I know they are listening. I know they are listening with Holland, and I want them to register it. No Director General supersedes the authority of the Island Council. And if the Island Council feels that they need to take money from one area of priority in the budget in order to do this, then we will do it. Because we're getting an opportunity to be able to do something for our people. And as I said, if something like this was happening in any part of Holland, they wouldn't have this kind of discussion. I'm hearing the Commissioner based on the question that I asked about the preparation of the site. I think some time back, my advisor gave me a note where there were money promised in 2022 that had to go towards the renovation of these houses. I think it was 500,000. I don't know if it's dollars or euro. I think the same Basel group, it was coming from Cardi B, Snedland, Basic, Cadecane, and then was another 500,000 that was coming from Cardi B, Snedland, Island Priority. Now, I find it a burning shame that we are part of the Dutch constitutional state. And we have to be here coming with motions and having all of these discussions in order to do something for our people. While every year, Madam Speaker, the Dutch government continue to invest millions into other jurisdiction that is not their own because of their political geopolitics. Not so long ago, the Commissioner alluded to me this morning as well, where we had the Orange Bay project, something that I believe was squarely the responsibility of the Dutch, with this whole renovation of the cliff. And to force the government in this country with a limited budget, when they should have paid the amount of money that had to be paid, they force the government to come up and borrow a loan from them, a sort of free interest loan as they call it, to pay something that they failed to carry out over the years. Yes, I'm going to give you something, but the bulk of the money, you have to come with it. And it was their failure. Because, Madam Speaker, they had a report, and they withheld the report from the Island Council and the people. And now you want to sell 25 houses that was built on my land, our land, that was given decades ago by governments in the past who had more empathy for the people in this island, and now you're coming with your nonsense telling me that you want market value. The Dutch should be ashamed of themselves. They should put a crocus bag, Madam Speaker, over their faces. Then beside the Orange Bay project, the housing, they was willing to give Basel all kind of money, Madam Speaker, because it is one of their own. But when we stood up and we said, under no condition that Basel will get these houses, we will keep the houses. Basel play the fool, they play around, and then they pull out. They pull out. And for us to be able to get not 60 houses anymore, I think we're going to come out to 40 something. Again, Madam Speaker, we had to go and borrow a free interest loan in order to build less houses, 36 to be exact, it was to be 50 in 10 years. And in order for us now to build 36, which is 14 less than what they promised, we got to go take a loan again. We have a CFT. So it seemed like this CFT is a crooked institution that when it is convenient to keep down the development and progress of the island, then CFT come forward. But again, I'm saying no CFT is about the authority of the Island Council. And Madam Speaker, may I submit, if this matter have to be fought out in court, I am prepared to do it. I am prepared to take the Dutch government to court on this issue because it's about our people. It's about our people. And if the Island Council feels in its majority, because we haven't passed the vote yet, what should happen with these houses and how we feel that we should go about it in order to be able to enable our people to own part of the rock, part of the Apatra money, Madam Speaker. And I think that my esteemed colleague from Rosemary Lane was even more eloquent than me today when he talked about giving opportunities for people to invest in the Apatra money. Then I think that the other gentleman from the south, he spoke about the millions that they are collecting in our country. And they failed to tell us, Madam Speaker, how much they are collecting in tax. And that is why I'm saying that we need to band together, not as PLP alone, but as Democrat, PLP, Independents, Executive, and the Island Council. And we need to confront the Dutch and call them out on their inconsistencies and their crookedness. Because how are you going to tell me that you are not prepared to invest and we have to borrow? Right there in St. Kitts are giving money. They're giving money in Jamaica. Some years ago, there was a big scandal in Jamaica with monies that they gave to invest. They gave in Dominica after the hurricane and many other places. And we're talking about millions, Madam Speaker, in no condition. And they don't have to pay back. They call it a grant. Solidarity grant. But here at home, we are a part of your Dutch constitutional state, something that we didn't ask for, but you're coming with all kinds of different conditions, even asking people to give up their virginity in order, Mr. Speaker or Madam Speaker, to get the minimum requirement. Minimum requirement. And that is why I'm saying that they are hypocrites. Hypocrites to the highest order, Madam Speaker, Bowrey. And the commissioner is saying that they are ready to build houses, but they may not have enough money in order to have the land ready and all the different things. And again, they may have to ask the ministry for money. And that is why I keep saying to government, we must become creative, innovative. Stop begging these people, because when the more you beg them, the more they put they keep the knee right in your neck, Madam Speaker, where you can't breathe. Because not even the basic minimum they are willing to give us. They come here with their nonsense each time. That's why I don't go when they come here with the foolishness, but you're going up and you're shaking hands with them because they don't care about you. And I said that on different occasions. You go to meetings in Holland, you explain them what is taking place. And if they talk about the new Minister of State, the Secretary of State, he came in, he talked about sustainability. But when he talked about sustainability, Alexander van Huffelen gave a certain amount of millions to the island, and he almost cut it in half. And that's why I told him in our meeting that this is in the days of Jesus, in the early time where you knock the rock and automatically water come out of the rock and the people drank. Those days are past, Madam Speaker. And that is why I'm saying the time has come that we must stand up and challenge these people. I'm not saying violate the law, not at all. But within that law, we must find formulas. And that is why we need to equip ourselves with our own people, with our own lawyers, Madam Speaker, that will be able to interpret their laws as well. Because sometimes they think we are foolish. We are dumb. We went to the universities and some of them come out better than them. But even then they think we are foolish. And so whatever they present before us, Madam Speaker, that we have to accept it. The commissioner rightfully said there was an LOE that was signed, but that LOE is not written in stone. I keep telling people the only thing that wouldn't change in this lifetime, Madam Commissioner, Speaker, through you, is the 10 Commandments. That ain't gonna change until Jesus comes. And so therefore, any LOE that is there, it could be changed, because initially, the PLP government was talking about 35 houses. And so I believe it must be the vision of your government, because you are one of the founders of the PLP. And this is the plan of the mission plan, that our people be able to own part of their patrimony. And so you have some of the most distinguished financial people that is around. Let them come together with advice that will help the government to generate more money and stop begging these people for money. Because when you beg them for money, they feel that they can give you what you want. The pittance.
Councilman Van Putten, just a reminder, you have one more
Well, I would say a lot in a minute. Madam Speaker, the gentleman from the south spoke about the crumbles that we are picking up from the table, because they are not telling us how much we are collecting in taxes. And if it means we need to take them to court as well in order to get that information, because they passed a law where they talk about open bar, hate fund information, blah, 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 you need to challenge them. You need to challenge them. And so I may submit, Madam Speaker, in wrapping up, that I am prepared to take this fight to the very end, that we will not sell those houses in Golden Rock for what they think we should sell it. And again, I'm sending a clear message to CFT. Be consistent, because you give a positive advice for us to borrow a loan for Orange Way project, putting the island in more financial debt. You give another advice for us to get money to build houses that you had to build and you failed to build. And I told Hugo de Jong he should have been ashamed to come to station and talk about building 5 houses a year, because it was 50 houses in 10 years. While in Holland, they're knocking down like crazy and building some of the most gigantic and luxurious buildings that we could think about. And you come into the black people in this island and giving us the pity. They should be shamed, Madam Speaker. But you see, our people, they are too passive, because when they come in this country, we need to meet them at the airport and demonstrate, and maybe even run them back on the plane and tell them like what's going on. And I think they call him Bakuna Safo, where this African guy is now standing up for his country. Maybe we need some of that in this country, where our people stand up and demand what is right for them. Madam Speaker, like I said, my time is up, but this fight don't end here. It's an instruction. I am not asking you, Madam Commissioner, to violate the law, but the Island Council is going to use the leverage of its authority within the confine of the law to make sure that the government complies. And if it don't end there, like I said, we are prepared to go to court to ensure that these houses are sold to the people for a decent price, but also the possibility we will open up the LOE so that more houses could be sold to those who are interested. May it please you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. Council Lady Raquel.
Hello? Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, thank you for your answers. You did indeed miss some answers that I was looking forward to, which is, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, because I'm just thinking if the motion is adopted, if you then would have to go into the process of identifying who qualifies, etc. And I really feel that the backlogs in rent should be taken along. Also, I have another question, again, maybe then towards when or if the motion is adopted, regarding the tax liability for these people, which remains, because the value of what they're purchasing doesn't change, regardless of what they paid for it. So that would have to be taken into account as well. But also the value of what they're getting. It's a gift, but they are receiving it either way. The grant would be a gift. I also have one point of concern when we're speaking of possible maybe delays. I kind of feel like we're going around in circles as the topic keeps coming back. So my mind is in a circle, but there's one question that I have left, which is with the chronological order not following as it should. Like you said, there is some answers that need to be, some questions need to be answered, but in the process, for instance, now, there were some people that may have backed out because they thought they couldn't afford. Now with this grant possibility, we're going to bring some more players to the table. So it kind of offsetting the process. So I'm wondering, basically, if somebody know what they're doing, because I don't know what's happening right now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Lady Spano-Carty. We'll now move on. Next speaker, Councilman Derek Simmons.
Thank you. I believe our duty as a council is to create a framework for something to happen, not to execute. But I believe in finding solutions when it comes to finding the money to pay for these things. What I notice is right here we're meeting in the EUC building. We can't meet in the guest house because the guest house compound is in a, what's the word? Deplorable situation. It should be embarrassed to have a compound like that where basically you have a government that has money. And we as government, I believe, is paying an outrageous amount in rent. And you're not using it. In the private sector, if you have a problem with your landlord, you don't just pay rent blindly like that. It wouldn't surprise me you have the fort, which you're hearing is going to be renovated for next year. Big celebration. My question is, are we still paying rent for buildings that we are not using? And those are like, I like to use the word, in government, I think there's a lot of waste that money, government is spending money. And when it comes to the national government, to me, that waste just flows like it's normal. And only maybe years after you find out that you have been overpaying or underpaying, and sometimes you have these big amounts on the a bank account, and you don't know. But I believe in transparency. Those are some indication. I believe I heard sometimes the rent that is being paid for the government compound guest house is something like around $8,000 a month. And when you add up those figures, it is kind of shocking, because you have signs place there, don't use the stairs, don't walk here because the building might collapse or you might break a leg. And you are preparing for a so-called national celebration next year. And based on how I see, I always say seeing is believing. It looks like money has been spent, but not much is happening. That is, the impression that is created. Now, when you come back to these houses, social housing, you're trying to basically do something for your people. It might not work fully, but we as the Island Council is creating the framework for things to happen. And if you sit back and do nothing, nothing's going to happen. If you do something, something might happen. And I believe we have basically used this motion and tried to come with creative ways to help that we can basically help stations, help people from the social housing, which I know the national government like to say, talk about poverty alleviation, but sometimes I get the impression you're creating poverty. But I believe as a council, our concern is, one of our concerns is to eliminate poverty and also have that pride where people can say, I own a part of the rock. And I believe, and me as a council member, is, trying to champion this cause, to try in our little way to make things happen. Let's just work together and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons. Next speaker, Councilman Glenville Smith.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I will continue where my colleague left off. Let's just work together and get it done. We started out this process to sell some of the houses in Golden Rock to tenants. And that has to be the goal, and that has to be the focus. Of course, because we are bringing in this motion while the process is still ongoing, adjustments may have to be made. But I would like the Executive Council to focus on the objective, which is we want to sell the houses. Before, at the beginning we got into this process, there was no test of income, whether who can afford or who can't afford. We say we want to sell the houses to the tenants. And all the tenants were invited to express interest. So when you're saying that after all of this process we go through, we are only helping those people who already were able to qualify and may have the finances, that's not the point. The point is we want to sell the house. So if they were qualified already and they're still qualified now and they want to buy, you sell to them. So that should not be a discussion, that should not be a debate. I agree that the government has to go back and look at all the different steps that need to take place, seeing again that this motion is coming in the middle of the process. I am hoping that the time frames that were set, like I mentioned, June 30th for the tenants to respond, that can still be maintained, that legally will be worked out when exactly the grant can be incorporated in the process. And I hope indeed that all the players, which is CFT and ministry and everybody, knows that the council is very serious about this and we just want this to happen. So again, we do not want to have any delay in the process. My colleague, Mr. Van Putten, also referred to the State Secretary who talks about he wants more sustainability in the islands, that we are able to do more for ourselves. Well, I mean, who is sustainability for? It must be for everyone, everybody. We have to start at the bottom. If we want to start building wealth, building resources of our people, making our people more aware, more conscious, more responsible, like I said this earlier, for the roof over their heads, we need to start at the bottom. Yeah, we can't say we're going to skip a certain level and go only to those that are higher up. We have to help those at the bottom who are also willing. Of course, we are functioning within a framework, financially and otherwise, where some will need more assistance than others, but the goal remains the same. I'm also, more and more when I hear about, these interest-free loans. Well, the interest-free loans, is our means that we have now to find finances for various expenditures or projects that we need, but we need indeed to be careful that we don't overburden ourselves with these interest-free loans. Because like everything, it seems that that's the solution. We went into this status as public entity, as part of the Dutch constitutional state, as they say, and it was aware, everyone is aware that we faced, especially here in Station, well, and now we're hearing all the islands basically, that we face tremendous backlogs in many areas. And we've called on the government of the Netherlands many times to fix the backlogs in the island. Give us a clean slate so that we can go forward, we can pick up the pace by just maintenance of whether roads or buildings or whatever the case may be. But fix the backlog first. But now they want to fix the backlogs by still throwing all the burden on the island. I talked this morning about our small island of just 3,000 people, generating 5 million in local taxes here on this island, which sounds like a huge burden because it's almost $2,000 per person living on the island. So again, we have to appeal to the government, and maybe the council needs to come back on this, and we need to start a separate trajectory to have discussions with the Netherlands about forcing these interest-free loans on us, because just now most of our free allowance will be going to these interest-free loans. So we have to call on them again to fix the backlogs in the different areas. Fix the backlogs before you can hold the island accountable for various costs and expenses. Our backlogs have been building up for the last 50 years of the Netherlands Antilles time. How do you expect 3,000 people on the island to be able to carry the financial weight of all of those backlogs going back so far? And we're talking all the time about, not we, they too, about capacity issues. We have, I mentioned, I heard, week and every year when we have our budget, we have I think it's about 50 or $60 million now on our accounts for projects that we can't execute because we don't have the capacity. So we need to start there. The Netherlands needs to come to the table and discuss what they are going to do to alleviate the backlogs in the island rather than putting that financial burden on the island. It is unconscionable in a way that oftentimes many years go by that we cannot really do something for our people because we don't have the resources to do that. And when we have these once in a blue moon possibility to do something for our people, enormous pressure is being put on us. Enormous pressure is being put not only on the government, but it trickles down to the people. Because that's what the people out there in the streets tell you. They mention Holland all the time. Holland won this, Holland won that, Holland saying this, Holland putting pressure here, Holland putting pressure there. So whatever we as island representatives do or try or want to achieve, we are having to face stumbling blocks at every bend, at every turn, and we need to have a conversation with the national government about that. I just want to conclude again by re-emphasizing that the goal is to sell these houses to the tenants. I hope that the time plan, the time frame, will not be disturbed or disturbed too much, that we definitely don't have to go back over the process of appraisals, go over that process again. So I'm really appealing to the Executive Council to go to the maximum and try to realize this plan for the people of Golden Rock Village without too much disturbance of the time plan that was put in place and the scheme. Because we need to do this for our island and for our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. We've had everyone on the second round. Commissioner, I will now pass the word to you for response to the queries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To come back to Councilman Van Putten, response. Yes, we are doing everything that we can in our possession, in our authority, to increase the revenues of government. And Commissioner Merkman, who's also the Commissioner of Airport, has plans, I think he's in advanced stages, to expand the tarmac for jet parking, and then we're looking to build a hangar. So all these ambitious plans that we have also comes with a price tag, and we're trying to see how we can make $1 out of 50 cents right now. So we try to juggle and be creative that we can actually get some of these things going so we can actually increase the revenues, because as Councilman Smith said, the Island Council do not want to put any more burden on the people of Statia, seeing that the Dutch government already take most of the taxes. So we feel that it is not responsible of us if we can continue to add to the increasing in poverty, but we're trying to find ways that we can divert that and not put the stress on the people. The reality is, and I actually got a rude awakening a couple of days ago, how expensive, I know it was expensive already, but the burden that these entrepreneurs take on, just trying to, have a business on the island, the tax plan and the whole setup and everything, when you put it together, you look at the numbers and you want to know how businesses are surviving. This is something that the Island Council has championed on many occasions, spoken to many persons, parliament, everything, and they went ahead and they just passed the tax plan as is. We did get good news that they don't see right now to do any differences for next year, so at least we might be able to breathe a bit within what we have, even though it's not good. But to know that no more is coming, at least that is a size of relief. So we are trying all kind of ways. Councilman Van Putten talk about public-private partnership. We're exploring all those things. Again, the sad reality is that we don't have a lot of expertise in-house, and those that we have is already burdened with stuff. So what we do, again, to try to be creative, we hire in outside so we can get these things moving faster, because we feel you pay now, but it comes with a greater reward where we can get these investments started. Because if we have to rely on the burden of the Civil Corps who are already burdened, some of them have a lot of stuff going on. I can't ask them to do a million things. I'm already asking them for 150%. Literally, some of them are giving 150%, and I'm very grateful for that, because if they don't give the 150%, we would not even achieve what we have achieved. So to do that, we are also looking to hiring outside, so that also cuts into some monies that we have to use to accomplish these things. So it's gonna get bad before it get better. I believe in that. I think we'll have to buckle down. This is a instruction from the Island Council, and I would like to carry out the instructions of the Island Council once within the confinement of the law. If it means that one of the dreams that I had may have to be delayed or postponed, if that is what the council wants, then that is what will have to happen. In response to Councilman Smith, what I tried to explain, because based on what I heard the council said, is that persons, I think Councilman Van Putten talked about that too, we'll have to explore that, where you open up the areas, if you don't have kids, that maybe a niece or somebody can buy the homes. The call, how I understand it, and I stand to be corrected, is that persons reach out because they are not able to buy the homes. I don't think the 20, and I'm just going far-fetched, but I don't think the 29 persons is the one who reach out and say, hey, I can't buy the homes. I think it's the ones who did not come in, I don't know the English, what's unmerking? Consideration. They feel like they don't have the finances that may just say, hey, you know, I really want to buy the homes, and maybe I can not buy the home, but maybe my niece, for instance, can buy the home at that sale price. But the requirements does not allow for my niece to buy the home for me. So these things, of course, you can open up. And to Council Lady Spanakati, yes, the backlog, that was one of them I missed, but I wrote it down there. The backlog need to be paid before you can actually buy the home. So you're not going to get away scotch-free for those who didn't pay their rent for years and want to buy the home. Besides that, there's a number of stuff as well when it comes to, if you have government land, you have to choose. So that also gives other persons opportunity to now get that government land. We can go get back to somebody who can build a home but can't afford to build and buy the land, but they can take the land in long lease, and then they could build on it. So then we try to open up more opportunities to own a part of the rock in different areas. So you don't have to be one way or the other. When it comes to the process, and it's confusing, but the process is better clear when it comes to the buying, the purchasing. Now with this grant, it may now open up more buyers. So the 29 might go to 40. But that would not stop the process. So if now, for instance, I was 20 years in a home, but I can't afford it, now it open up where my besides the grant, now my niece can come in and help me buy the house. Then, and you have 10 years and you are actually the initial 29 persons who can, you get kicked out because I have seniority, so I can actually buy the home. But now, so it opened up a bit more of the persons, the seniors who may now, because they can't buy, because they can't get a loan. That's the main reason why. I mean, ain't that they can't afford it, but based on those younger persons may be able to come and go for a loan and be able to pay.
Clarification, Councilman Van Putten.
It's just a point of order. I listened to the commissioner, and you're right that with this new development, more people, would be given the opportunity. And I honestly is appealing to the government to look towards that possibility for a niece, a nephew, a brother, sister to be able to assist. But as we said also in the motion, because initially, when we started this whole thing in 2015, we talked about 35 houses. But because of the pulling and tugging, then there was water thrown the wine, as they say, till the wine got watery. And it ended up to 25. But we are saying now that we want to expand that. Because, like this, with this new development, of course, more people would have a name. And that is why I said the LOE is not written in stone. Even the LOE could be amended because already one person jumped out. One of the signatories jump out. So if the Island Council is saying we want to review the LV so that more people could come in and make in consideration to buy the home, that possibility must be explored as well. So I don't think nobody will be shortchanged.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So definitely the goal is to sell the homes, and I was very happy that we make it to that point. I was ecstatic the day when the Island Council had 5 votes to pass this, because I think it's a milestone for decades. When I had them do the research to see how long we were trying to, governments consecutively were trying to sell these homes, and we finally reached to the mountaintop, and then we're falling back down. I felt a bit, discouraged, but we're hoping that we can carry out and really help people be able to own their home, but also, if I can be transparent and open, I also want to help renovate other homes as well, because we see the state of how some of them in. You want that, okay, if I don't buy the home, that I can also have my home being renovated and not that persons are living in nice renovated homes and you're still struggling. I believe initial as well was as is, because we were hoping that with as is, then it would have a lower sale price, which it's still as is. I think somebody asked, they was wondering how it was being evaluated. And based on what I saw and read, is basically they didn't look at no additions that were made inside your home. So for instance, I take out the kitchen that was there and I put a brand new nice wooden kitchen that could last 15 years, or I put, so all your upgrades were not taken into consideration when I did the taxation. It was just the four walls and the building, the land, XYZ, so nothing else. Now with government giving the electricity and notary fees, I feel as well it's, you're giving additional stuff to these tenants. But we will see, we'll work as hard as we can, definitely, because we don't want to incur any more costs. So definitely, I don't know if that will mean, I think the team is equipped with enough people in the student group. Is it equipped enough to handle this? Is the team equipped? The student group can handle the student group. Okay. Yeah, so all the expertise is in the student group, so, sorry.
Point of clarification, Councilman Van Putten.
It's a point that it slipped me, because the commissioner talking about the renovations, and I think that in some areas it started, but there's also concern. But one thing that caught my attention is that in one of the, I think it was one of the first homes that I see some renovation has taken place. There's an addition added to the home, I think during the government of Eric Enriquez in the 70s, maybe later. They gave people the permission to be able to add a wing or room to their house. And I'm noticing now in the renovation of these homes that they were destroyed. At least this particular home, that room was destroyed. I would like to hear from the commissioner who gave the authority to do that and what sense it makes. Because if I buy my house, I am going to expand my house anyway. So what is wrong that if these people who got the permission at the time from the government, because people must understand that the majority of those houses in Golden Rock still is the property of the island government. And so if the government back in the day give these individuals the rights to add that addition to the home, I'm wondering who gave their authority the green light to break it down and what they were willing to achieve. Because to me, it don't make sense. I think it's a dumb move on the part of whoever did it. So I don't have the commissioner could shed light, because I am going to lobby with my colleagues to instruct the government to build it back. You don't break down something that is there already. So I would like to hear from the government as to who gave the authority instructions to break down that addition that was added to this particular home, because there are two still that is there from the tree that I know of. But one of them was broken down because I passed and I saw it, and I find it is very sad.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. Commissioner Ledan.
Okay, yeah. Based on the question, a concern from Councilman Van Putten, I just checked a bit with, I think preliminary understood that the homes were going to be repaired as is if they didn't have any permission to build, because I think the director told us in a presentation that once the persons them had permission, that they would maintain it. So we're going to look into that and see about that, because I think you said it's not government property because you add on. Government property was the piece, and then the building back what they actually repairing, what is their building. So that piece is not. I think legally is semantics. We can look into it. I don't know.
Point of clarification from Councilman Van Putten.
I don't have that answer. And even if your legal advisors give you that answer, I think it's a stupid answer. The government, the property of the house is the property of the government. And the government of the day give 3 individuals based on a request to add on that of them, I think this particular home that I'm referring to, I understood because of the high price that the people may have indicated that they're not in a position to buy, so automatically they need to repair. So if you're repairing, you repair the house as is. Because the person didn't go and build that addition on the house, they got the green light from the government. They got the green light from the government, Madam Speaker. So if the government give you the permission, why a director or a steward group, I don't know who did it, even a commissioner, would violate the power or the authority vested in them to break it down? It was there. It's a government property. And I hope that the government will be able, if you don't have the answer now, I am demanding within a week of today, through you, the Griffier, I'm looking towards you, a week from today, I want in writing who gave the authority and the permission to break it down. Because they're going to have to build it back. They're going to have to build it back, Madam Speaker, because a government agreed for those individuals who put those addition on the houses to do it. And somebody violate the authority and power and break it down, and they need to build it back. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. Commissioner, are you?
I'm getting some preliminary answers, but I think I will just get it fully instead of saying things piece. But yeah, I think we'll give it in writing. Yeah, because the answer is kind of there already, but I just want to make sure it's 100% correct. So then Councilman Simmons asked a question about the buildings that we're not in right now. Well, Fort Adani for sure we're not in. We moved out almost a year ago. July will be almost a year. So you can start the renovations for, which he said is part of also the REHU deal. I got the figure that we pay about 70,000 and something for 5 buildings, which is including the fort. And it's normally invoice we pay in advance, but we have not made a payment as yet. So we're going to look into the fact that they have to deduct the fact that we're not, especially in the Fort Oranje, and how it plays out with the guest house as it is right now. So that is the answer that we have. And of course, we're going to make sure we're not paying for a building we're not in. And out of the 5 buildings, you got to make sure you're paying, those buildings still exist. 'Cause I think one of them, a few of them burn down. So we gotta look into to this whole agreement that we made a few years ago.
Councilman Van Putten?
Madam Speaker, I call the government guest house of a parliament building. That's where the House of offices, where meetings and debate are taking place, as my colleague correctly said. We can't use it. Some other places, they say that they got mold and giving people cancer. So the people running, some of them even have to function from home. So the question I asked the General Secretary last week, who pays for this building? Is there a pot set aside where the Island Council paying for it? Or is there a general arrangement that the public entity is paying for this building? Because if it is so, that Island Council is paying for that building, I will come with a resolution that we must stop. Because like the councilman said, I can't pay for something that I can't use. When I went down there for a meeting, I think it was Monday, and an old man like me, the Griffier, had me climbing in through window in order to get in the building. Because the floor is no good, and afraid that you fall in. How could I be paying for something, Madam Speaker, that I can't use? So I would like the question to be answered. Is the Island Council, is there a special part where the Island Council is the one paying for the use of the building? Or is it something that the public entity on a whole is paying for? Because if I'm not using it and I can't use it, then I shouldn't be paying for it. So I would like to hear from the government.
Councilman Van Putten. Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's from a general pot. That's why we're going to investigate. The Island Council doesn't have their own budget to set aside to pay for the rent. It's just generally government rents these buildings from Edward Bay, and we pay from a general pot. So we will look into it to ensure that we're not paying for a building that we're not using or cannot use at the moment. Yeah, when it comes to the question he asked about it will send in writing. I think it should be maybe before the week because I think the answer is already there. So I'll let the support finalize the answer and send it through the Griffier from the island office, island secretary, so we can always have it documented instead of it go directly to the Griffier. Councillor Spanner, Kati, did I answer all your questions? Okay, I think I answered everybody else. I tried to get the information. Okay, which one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I asked one regarding the tax reduction.
That's a very good question. Based on the advisor, he said that they will have to work it in their annual income because it's a gift that they get. So we will have to work out that what does that grant means for them as well, because yes, they bought the house for a certain amount, but it's going to have the tax value going to be the market value. So that also play a role. That's what we understood. So the grant comes as a blessing, but we're going to make sure it don't be a curse in another area, if I can understand it. Because when you look at the tax structure, a lot of things that we don't know, hidden or not hidden, or that's not unknown. We got to make sure that what we're helping them and it stays a help and not a liability. So that's something that they will work out as well, and we can give in writing the answer of how that would look to the tenants. And I think they should know as well what it means for them when they enter into something like that.
Councilman Simmons?
Yeah, thank you. You know that tax you're talking about? It's not in the letter. And those are things that, you keep asking, where are the figures? People are paying all these taxes through the notary, through different ways, and they're not reported. So that is basically an example of exactly what I'm talking about, is the very purchase of the let me put it that way, when it comes to transfer, wherever, you have to pay. But then report, in general, what all these taxes are, it's a big public secret. And to me, that is terrible.
I think property tax may not be something for them because they might own this may be the first home they own. So at least that for sure will not be an issue for them going forward. But we definitely have to look at both coins, because I think Council Lady Spanner talk about, some of them may not have that experience. So we want to make sure that persons, when they enter into this agreement, they know basically what they're getting themselves into, because you don't want to hear after the fact that, they didn't know this and then this happened, and if they had known, they wouldn't have done this. So I think it's good that we can try to paint the clearest picture possible, because as government, we are selling this, allowing you to purchase. So we got to make sure that we are helping you to ensure that you don't get yourself in some issues that you did not know you could have gotten into, and just give you all the information as possible. So I think the team is also working that out, because there were some questions about the taxation, so they can go to the bank, and what the procedure was for persons who was trying to go to the bank to obtain a loan. And I think the team worked out for them what the process would be, what they have to do on their end, will be given on our end through SSH. And I think that will bring more clarity for those who are trying to finalize the process like that. I would like to, I don't think I'll have another forum to do so, so I will like to, if the council and the chair lady indulge me, discuss about a meeting happened the 30th of April when we discussed the motion first. I believe that the meeting was a bit tense and there was some misunderstandings that took place, and I would just like to apologize to the director and give him thanks for all that he has done so far, and we hope that those misunderstandings does not cause any further delays in terms of finalizing the whole project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Man Van Putten?
I would like to know from the commissioner what is she apologizing to the director for? There was a meeting here, because I think the people must be told the truth. There was a meeting here, and I think it had to do with the fact that when people went to the Golden Rock, the office over in Golden Rock, some people who hear and know, who listened to the meeting, said that the transfer of the property, the notary fee, and other taxes along with the lights or whatever, would be paid by the government. And somebody, I don't know who, at the office over there in Golden Rock told them that they were not aware of that. Nobody told them anything about that. And some people who listened and maybe spoke with council members said, yes, that is the decision. And whoever there spoke to them was adamant and said that information wasn't given. But anyway, it came to a point here. That is what I could remember about it. When the very same commissioner here was sitting in the stead of a colleague who was missing in action. And she brought something to that point. And I said that is a lie. Apparently, because the public must know, it was interpreted that I called the director a liar because I didn't even mention him because I don't know who spoke to the people. And apparently a letter went and said that I must apologize, which it will never happen. I will not apologize because I did not call him a liar. Based on what the commissioner said, that was said by whoever, I said that was a lie. But I think that civil servants need to understand, because some of them are back to when I spoke about the budget was a hogwash. I heard from the Commissioner of General Affairs that some people didn't want positions and some of them was ready to resign. I said, let them resign. Because I am sitting here for all these years and I get all kind of abuse, Madam Speaker. They say all kind of nasty things about me, and I, just like a doctor, as Vincent Lopes will say, it rolled off my back. But I want to make it clear here. It's not my intention to come and abuse no civil servants or anybody that's working with governments. But what I will not accept either, that I be placed in a position where I can't say this, I can't say that, because people will be offended. I watch parliamentary debates, even in the United States. This is the land of the home and of the free and the brave or whatever it is. There's all thing about presidents and congressmen and all kind of people. And what you're going to do? America plays where you could sue people. But again, I'm saying, I did not call anybody, any director, a liar. I said whoever, based on the information that I got at least from 3 different people, that the information was not, they asked about these things, and they said no, that was not given to them. And when that came forward, I said that was a lie. So I hear the commissioner apologizing, but I don't know on whose behalf she's apologizing, what she's apologizing about. So I think it is good for the general public to know.
Commissioner Ledan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, for context, we received some communication. It did not state that Councilman Van Putten directly didn't state anybody's name. It just stated that because of what remarks was made, you know, they felt bad. I'm trying to find the right words. But what I'm doing right here is that when I spoke to Councilman Van Putten, and when you look at the whole thing, it's just a misunderstanding. And I'm apologizing that this misunderstanding occurred that led to this situation. So I'm just apologizing on behalf of the Executive Council and my colleague, and just letting now the public know, but it was a misunderstanding that took place. So I think once that is clear up, that we shouldn't have an issue. So that's what it was, a misunderstanding. So I'm apologizing for the misunderstanding And we're hoping that we can finalize this process and work together to finish off this sale of the homes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm taking that there is no other further comments on this topic. If not, then do I have the agreement of the members with regard to this motion? Have to vote, I'm sorry. Which one is it? Sorry, okay. Then, okay, then, sorry about it, but can we move on to the voting on this motion? Councilman Van Putten,
Speaker, with pleasure, I vote for the motion.
sorry, Council Lady Raquel,
Against.
Councilman Derek Simmons,
For.
Councilman Grenville Smith,
I vote for the motion. Thank you.
the proposal for the motion for the sale of Golden Rock houses received 3 votes for and 1 against. Based on the outcome, the motion is hereby I'm sorry. We now move on to agenda point 10. 9? I thought we just did 10. Okay. Announcements. Commissioner, do you have any announcements?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Merkman is out on a work visit. He's part of the delegation of the BES. They're visiting the second part of the trip when it comes to healthcare. They're visiting hospitals in St. Martin, in Livonia, and Aruba. So he's now visiting St. Martin. I think he'll be back home tomorrow. He will not finalize the tour, but he wanted to visit St. Martin Hospital because of all the issues that we are having with the hospital, so he can be there and have those discussions with the team. So that's why he's not here present today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Leodam. I have 2 minor announcements. The Island Council and Executive Council will be traveling to the Netherlands for annual VNG Congress and for other administrative consultation. These meetings will take place during the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th week of June. Also, I'd like the community to know the next Central Committee will be July 3rd, and the Island Council will be July 10th. Now, the announcements is I would like to bring to attention to everyone the Atlantic hurricane season starts officially on June 1st. And I invite the community to attend the economical service at the Bethel Methodist Church. This event is held annually as we enter the season of the potential tropical storm and hurricanes. Date of this service will be June 2nd. And I would like to also admonish the community to start the preparedness. The crisis team will occasionally bring out different updates, and I will admonish them to please follow and listen. If there are any questions or anyone needs assistance, then you just let us know. And that's it. That was it for me. So now we'll move on to agenda point 11, which is closing of the meeting. We have come to the end of our meeting today. Thank you for fruitful discussion, and please show our respect to the anthem by standing as we bring the meeting for today to a close.
meeting is hereby officially closed.